"Stay with me!" this orc girl begged, but he had darker plans for her. There are moments in life where survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about what you're willing to trade for one more breath, one more heartbeat, one more chance to see tomorrow. And sometimes the price of survival is so high that you spend the rest of your life wondering if dying would have been cheaper. This is a story about trust given too freely, about kindness that wore a mask, about a warrior who learned that the sharpest blade isn't the one you see coming. It's the one disguised as a helping hand. The Frost Peak Mountains didn't care if you were human or orc. Cold killed everything equally. It was one of the few fair things about war. The snow didn't pick sides. It just buried whoever was stupid enough to be caught in it when the storms came. Volna had been stupid. She lay in a shallow ravine, half buried under snow that had turned pink from her blood. The wound in her side wasn't the kind that healed with rest and good luck. It was the kind that killed you slowly, giving you just enough time to think about all the ways you'd failed. She was 26 years old, a warrior of the Iron Peak clan, daughter of Vorgath the Unbreaking, who died defending this same stretch of cursed mountain 10 years ago. She'd sworn on his memory that she'd be better, stronger, that she wouldn't die like he did. Alone, bleeding out while the enemy marched past his corpse, and here she was, making a liar of herself. The patrol had been ambushed 3 hours ago, or maybe 4. Time got slippery when you were bleeding out. Volna remembered the whistle of arrows, the screams, Brack's voice shouting her name before the sound was cut off by steel. She'd run. Not from cowardice. Retreat was strategy. Her chieftain Krog always said that. A dead warrior serves no one. A live one can fight tomorrow. But there wouldn't be a tomorrow. Not for her. The cold was starting to feel warm. That was bad. That meant her body was giving up, shutting down, preparing for the long sleep. She heard footsteps crunching through snow. Human footsteps, lighter than orc, quicker. Her hand moved to her blade, but her fingers wouldn't grip properly. Everything felt distant, disconnected. A man appeared at the edge of the ravine, human, 30-something with dark hair and the kind of face that looked like it had been handsome once, before life carved worry lines into it. He wore leather armor, practical traveling gear, and carried a sword that had seen real use, not a soldier. Mercenary, probably, or scout. He stared down at her with the expression of someone who just found a problem they hadn't asked for. Volna tried to speak, but all that came out was a wet cough. Blood on her lips. Definitely bad. The man didn't move, just stood there, calculating. She could see it in his eyes, the math of whether helping her was worth the risk, whether an orc's life had any value to him. "Stay with me," she managed finally. The words came out in broken common tongue, accent thick. "Please, stay." It was the kind of plea that shouldn't work. Enemy soldier begging enemy soldier for mercy. But sometimes desperation spoke a language that transcended sides. Sometimes, when you were dying in the snow, all that mattered was that another living creature was nearby. Proof that you weren't alone at the end. The man's expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite pity, not quite compassion. Something else. Something that looked like opportunity. "You're hurt bad," he said, stating the obvious, buying time to think. "I know." Volna's vision was blurring. "Just don't leave, please." He crouched down, getting a better look at her wound. His hands moved with surprising gentleness as he examined her side. "This needs proper treatment, bandages, medicine, maybe stitches. Then help." She fumbled at her neck with numb fingers, finally managing to pull free the cord that held her most precious possession, the wolfstone pendant, grey stone with white markings, worn smooth by generations of warriors who'd carried it before her. Her father's. His father's before that. She held it out with a shaking hand. "Payment, it's worth—" Another cough. "Worth something?" The man took the pendant, studying it with what seemed like genuine interest. The stone caught the dying light, grey and white swirling together like storm clouds. To him, it was probably just a trinket. To her, it was everything. Family, honor, the unbroken line of warriors who trusted each other with their lives. This is important to you, he said. Not a question, an observation. Everything. The word barely made it past her lips. He was quiet for a long moment, then finally, "My name is Davin, and I'll make you a deal, Orc. I'll save your life, get you warm, patch you up, keep you alive. But you're going to owe me." "Owe you what?" "Information. About your people, your clan. Nothing that'll get anyone killed," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "Just things I need to know. Routes, camps, numbers. That's all." Volna should have questioned it. Should have wondered why a human mercenary needed Orc intelligence, should have recognized the trap in the kindness. But the cold was in her bones now, and the darkness was pressing in from all sides, and she was so tired. "Deal," she whispered. Davin smiled. It was a nice smile. Warm, trustworthy. It should have been her first warning. He worked quickly after that, with the efficiency of someone who'd done field medicine before, packed the wound with moss and cloth torn from his own shirt, wrapped her torso tight enough to slow the bleeding. Then he hauled her up, and she was not a small woman, but he managed, and half carried, half dragged her through the snow towards something she couldn't see. "There's a cave," he explained, his breath fogging in the freezing air. "Not far. Used it before. We'll shelter there until the storm passes." Volna didn't remember much of the journey. Just fragments, the bite of wind, the sound of her own laboured breathing. Davin's voice, low and steady, telling her to keep moving just a little further. "You're doing fine. Almost there." The cave was small but deep, cutting back into the mountainside far enough that the wind couldn't reach. Davin had supplies cached there, blankets, firewood, dried meat, a water skin. He'd planned this. Or at least he'd prepared for the possibility. He built a fire with practiced hands, got her wrapped in blankets, forced her to drink water, then gave her something bitter and medicinal that made her gag, but seemed to dull the pain. The whole time he kept talking, asking questions, gentle ones at first. "What's your name?" "Volna." "How old are you, Volna?" 26 winters. That's young for a warrior, isn't it? Most orcs I've seen in the field are older. Young for chieftain, not for warrior. She was starting to feel slightly more human, or more orc, technically. The point was, she could think again. "We fight as soon as we can hold blade. Must be hard." He was examining the wolfstone pendant, turning it over in his fingers. "This really that important to you?" "My father's, and his father before. It means—" She struggled to find the words in common tongue. "It means we keep our promises. When you give wolfstone to someone, you swear you'll never betray them." Davin's expression didn't change. "And you gave it to me." "I did. Then I guess I'd better keep you alive." That first night passed in a haze of pain and fever dreams. Volna drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of Davin nearby but not quite able to focus on him. She dreamed of her father, of Krog's disappointed face, of Brack's voice calling her name in the ambush, of all the warriors who died in these mountains, and how she'd sworn she wouldn't be one of them. She woke to the smell of cooking meat. Morning light filtered into the cave, grey and weak. Davin was crouched by the fire, roasting something on a stick. "Rabbit," he said, noticing she was awake. "Found some snares nearby. Lucky." Volna tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her entire side screamed in protest. "Easy!" Davin moved to her side, helping her adjust without pulling the wound. "You lost a lot of blood. It's going to take time." "I don't have time. My clan—" "Your clan thinks you're dead. The storm covered all the tracks. No one's looking for you because there's nothing to find." He said it matter-of-factly, without cruelty, just stating reality. "You stay here, rest, heal. Then we'll figure out what comes next. What comes next is I return to my people. Sure, after you hold up your end of the bargain." He offered her a piece of cooked rabbit. "Remember? Information for your life." She did remember, and she'd agreed. An oath was an oath, even one given in desperation, especially one given with the wolfstone pendant as guarantee. "What do you want to know?" she asked quietly. "Not yet. Eat first. Build your strength. We've got time." That should have been the second warning. But Volna was in pain, exhausted, and alive when she should have been dead. Gratitude is a powerful drug. It makes you overlook things you shouldn't. The days that followed formed a strange routine. Davin tended her wounds with surprising skill, changed bandages, brought her food and water, talked to her. Not interrogation, conversation. He asked about her life, her clan, her father, seemed genuinely interested in Orc culture. "You have families?" he asked one evening. "Like actual families, not just war bands?" Volna stared at him. "You thought we just spawned from rocks?" "Some humans believe that, yeah. We have mothers, fathers, children. We raise them, love them. Same as you." She paused. "Maybe that's surprising to you." "It is," he admitted. "Everything I've heard about orcs. It's not that. Everything you've heard was from humans who wanted you to hate us. Easier to kill someone if you don't think they're people." Something crossed his face. Guilt, maybe. Or recognition. "That's probably true." She told him about her father, about how he'd taught her to fight not with brutality, but with honor, about how he'd died holding a bridge so his unit could retreat, and how his body was never recovered because the humans threw it off the mountain. "I'm sorry," Davin said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Why are you here?" she asked. "In the mountains. Mercenary work. Something like that." He looked away, poking at the fire. "I go where the money is. Right now, the money's in knowing orc movements. Who pays you? Does it matter?" It should have mattered. Should have raised every alarm. But Volna was starting to trust him. He'd saved her life, stayed with her through the fever, listened to her stories and seemed to care. When you're alone in a cave with someone for days, you stop seeing them as enemy and start seeing them as person. That was the trap. By the end of the first week, she was walking again, slowly, painfully, but walking. Davin helped her practice moving without tearing the wound, caught her when she stumbled, laughed when she made dry jokes about orc stubbornness. "Your people must be worried," he said one afternoon. "Krog will have held a death ceremony for me by now. In our clan, if you don't return from patrol within 4 days, they assume you're dead. Can't spare warriors searching forever. So you're dead to them." "Yes. That's sad. That's war." He asked questions. Carefully, casually. What routes did her patrol usually take? How many warriors in her clan? Where was their main camp? What were their defensive positions? Volna answered. Not all of it. She wasn't stupid, but enough. Enough to fulfill the bargain. Enough that when she returned home, she could say with honor that she'd kept her word to the human who saved her life. She didn't notice how he memorized every detail, didn't see him mapping it all in his head, didn't realize that every answer was a piece of a larger puzzle he was assembling. Because she trusted him, because he'd stayed with her in the snow when he could have walked away, because he listened to her stories and called her by her name and seemed to see her as a person. The betrayal, when it came, was almost gentle. She woke one night to find him gone. The cave was cold. The fire had burned down to embers. She sat up, wincing, and saw him standing at the cave entrance, whispering to someone she couldn't see in the darkness outside. Confirmed the numbers, he was saying. 20 warriors, maybe 25. Main camp is in the northern valley, accessible through the eastern pass. They rotate patrols every 3 days. Volna's blood went cold, in a way that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "When?" a woman's voice asked. Senna. Had to be Senna. His contact, the one he'd mentioned once and then never spoken of again. 2 days from now. They'll be changing patrol rotations. Half strength on the eastern watch. It's perfect. And the source? Davin glanced back toward where Volna lay. She closed her eyes quickly, feigning sleep. "Reliable," he said. "Didn't even know she was telling me. She thinks I saved her out of kindness." Senna laughed. It was not a kind sound. "You always did know how to work a mark." "It's not like that, isn't it? You found an enemy soldier, kept her alive just long enough to get intel, and now you're going to let us wipe out her entire clan. That's exactly what it's like." She's different. She's green and she's enemy, and she's the reason you're getting paid. Don't get sentimental, Davin. Silence. Then, I'm not sentimental. I'm practical. This was always the plan. Good. Because the ambush happens at dawn, the day after tomorrow. Be at the rally point with the final details. Footsteps crunching through snow. Senna leaving. Davin standing alone at the cave entrance, shoulders tense. Vulna didn't move, didn't breathe. Her mind was screaming, but her body stayed perfectly still. Every word, every question, every kind gesture, it had all been manipulation. He hadn't saved her out of mercy. He'd saved her because she was useful, because she knew things. Because a trusting orc was easier to extract information from than a suspicious one. The Wolfstone pendant. She'd given him the physical symbol of trust, of unbreaking oaths, and he'd used it to break her completely. 2 days. She had 2 days before an ambush would hit her clan at half strength, attacking from a position they'd never expect, because she'd told Davin exactly where their weaknesses were. Krog would die. Brack would die. Everyone she loved would die. Because of her. Because she'd been stupid enough to trust a human who smiled warmly and asked questions gently and seemed to care. Davin returned to the fire. Added wood stared into the flames. "I know you're awake," he said quietly. Vulna opened her eyes, looked at him, said nothing. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." He nodded. Didn't insult her by denying it. "It was never personal, Vulna." "Oh, well, that makes it better." Her voice was flat, dead. "You only betrayed me professionally. I'm a mercenary. This is what I do. I gather intelligence. Get paid. Move on. You saved my life. I needed you alive to talk. You stayed with me through the fever, the nightmares. I needed you to trust me." She laughed. It hurt her wound, but she laughed anyway because the alternative was screaming. "The Wolfstone pendant. You knew what it meant, what I was swearing when I gave it to you." "I did, and you took it anyway." Davin looked down at his hands. The pendant hung on a cord around his neck, grey stone with white markings, symbol of trust given and promises kept. "I took a job, Vulna. That's all this is. A job. A job that kills 20 warriors who've done nothing to you. They're orcs. We're at war. We're people. You said so yourself. You listened to my stories. You said—" Her voice cracked. "You said you were sorry about my father." "I was, but not sorry enough to not do this." He didn't answer. Couldn't, probably. What could you say to that? Vulna tried to stand. Her side screamed in protest, but she forced herself up, using the cave wall for support. "I need to go. I need to warn them." "You can't travel, not yet. The wound is your problem now. You wanted me alive to talk. Congratulations, I talked. Now I'm going to undo every piece of information I gave you." She took a step toward the cave entrance. Her legs nearly buckled. Davin moved fast, catching her before she fell. She tried to pull away, but didn't have the strength. "Don't," he said. "You'll tear the stitches. Let me go. Vulna, let me go." He did. Stepped back. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, the world spinning. "Even if you make it out of this cave," Davin said quietly, "you'll never reach them in time. The camp is 3 days' travel. You're injured. You'll collapse before you make it halfway. Then I'll die trying. That's stupid. That's honor, something you wouldn't understand." The words landed like a blow. She saw him flinch. "I understand more than you think," he said. "Do you? Do you understand what the Wolfstone pendant means? It means trust absolute. My father gave it to me on his deathbed, made me promise I'd only give it to someone who earned it, someone who'd never betray that trust." She laughed bitterly. "I gave it to you after knowing you for 5 minutes, because I was dying and desperate and you were there. And you—" Her voice broke. "You used that. Used the most sacred thing I own to destroy everything I love." Davin's jaw tightened. "I didn't know—" "Yes, you did. I explained it. Told you what it meant. You knew exactly what you were taking." Silence filled the cave. Outside, wind howled through the mountains. Inside, two people stared at each other across a space that might as well have been a chasm. "I'll give it back," Davin said finally. He reached for the cord around his neck. "Keep it. Vulna, keep it. Remember what it means. Every time you look at it, remember the orc who trusted you, the one whose family you're going to kill." She pushed away from the wall, forcing herself to stand straight despite the pain. "Maybe it'll bother you, maybe it won't, but you'll have it. Proof of what you are." She walked toward the cave entrance. Each step was agony, but she didn't let it show. "You won't make it," Davin called after her. "Watch me. At least take supplies, bandages, water." She stopped at the entrance, not looking back. "Why would you help me now? Because I'm not a monster." "No." She glanced over her shoulder. "You're something worse. You're someone who pretends to be good while doing terrible things. At least monsters are honest about what they are." Then she was gone, limping out into the snow and darkness, using pure rage to keep herself upright when her body wanted to collapse. Behind her in the cave, Davin stood alone by the fire. His hand closed around the wolfstone pendant. It felt heavier than it should have. The mountain didn't care about drama, didn't care about betrayal or honor or any of the human or orc complications that made life messy. It just existed, cold and indifferent, killing anyone stupid enough to challenge it while injured and furious. Vulna made it approximately 47 minutes before she collapsed. She knew because she counted each second, each step, the way her father had taught her to march through pain. Count your breaths, count your heartbeats, make it a rhythm, make it something you can control when everything else is chaos. 47 minutes, 1,128 steps. Then her legs gave out, and she was face down in snow that was already trying to bury her. She didn't move for a long time, just lay there, feeling the cold seep in, wondering if this was how she'd die after all, not in glorious battle, not defending her clan, but alone, betrayed, unable even to warn her people about the death coming for them. "Vulna," Davin's voice. Of course. Because fate had a sense of humor. She felt hands on her shoulders, rolling her over. His face swam into view, concern etched in every line. "Don't touch me," she managed. "You're going to die out here." "Good. That's not—" He stopped himself, started again. "Let me help you. Like you helped me before." He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he did what humans apparently did best. He ignored the words and took action. Hauled her up, started dragging her back toward the cave. "Stop," Vulna said. "I need to go." "You need to heal. Then we'll figure out—" "There's nothing to figure out. They die in 2 days because of me. I'll call it off." The words stopped her, struggling. "What?" "The ambush. I'll call it off." "Send word to Senna. Tell her the intel was bad." "Why would you do that?" Davin was quiet for a moment, then, "Because you're right. About the pendant. About what I am." They made it back to the cave. He settled her by the fire, checked her wound. Miraculously, the stitches had held, and then sat across from her, firelight casting shadows on his face. "I've been doing this for 5 years, he said. "Working as a scout, gathering intelligence. It's good money, and it's distant, you know. You find the information, pass it along, collect your pay. You don't see the consequences, don't think about them. Convenient." "Yeah." He looked at the wolfstone pendant, still hanging around his neck. "But then you meet someone, and they tell you stories about their father, about honor and family and promises, and suddenly it's not distant anymore, it's real. So you'll call off the ambush." "I'll try. That's not good enough. It's what I can offer." He met her eyes. "Senna's already got the information. Even if I tell her it's bad intel, she might not believe me, might check it herself, might go through with it anyway. Then I still need to warn them. You still need to heal. You need to be alive, Vulna, because even if I call it off, even if Senna listens, your people should know what happened, should know a human scout was working this area, should know to change their patterns." He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. "How long?" she asked. 3 more days, to heal enough to travel. That's after the ambush. I'll call it off today, send a message bird to Senna. If she doesn't listen, Then I'll go myself. Intercept the ambush party. Stop it personally. Why would you risk that? Davin touched the pendant. Because you trusted me, and I destroyed that. I can't fix it. Trust doesn't work that way. But I can stop more damage from being done. Volna stared at him, trying to read him, trying to figure out if this was another manipulation. But there was something different in his eyes now, something raw and real. You understand that I still hate you, she said. I do. That even if you stop the ambush, even if you do everything right from here on, I'll never trust you again. I know. Good. She leaned back, exhaustion crashing over her. Then send your message, and pray your handler listens. He did. Pulled out parchment, scribbled a quick message, attached it to a small bird that had apparently been caged in the back of the cave. The bird took off into the grey sky, carrying words that might save lives, or might not. Volna watched it disappear and tried not to think about all the ways this could still go wrong. The next 3 days were strange, tense. They didn't talk much. Davin tended her wound in silence, brought her food, made sure she drank water. All the same things he'd done before. But now the pretense was gone. Now they both knew exactly what this was. Did she respond? Volna asked on the second day. No, that's bad. That's not good, he agreed, but Senna's in the field. Communication takes time. Time we don't have. I know. On the third day, Volna stood up. Really stood, without needing the wall for support. Her side hurt, but it was manageable, survivable. I'm leaving, she said. Today. Davin nodded. I figured. He'd already packed supplies. Dried meat, water, bandages, a map. These are for you. I don't want your take them anyway. They'll keep you alive. That's more important than pride. She stared at the supplies, hated that he was right. Again. The map shows the fastest route to your camp, Davin continued. 2 days if you push hard. 3 if you're smart about your injury. You're just giving me this. After everything? I'm trying to make it right. You can't. I know, but I'm trying anyway. Volna gathered the supplies. As she turned to leave, Davin spoke again. Wait. He reached up, unhooked the cord from around his neck. The wolfstone pendant swung between them. This is yours. I told you to keep it, and I'm giving it back, because you were right. I don't deserve to carry this. She looked at the pendant. Grey stone with white markings, her father's promise. Her promise, broken and returned. It means nothing now, she said quietly. The oath was shattered when you betrayed me. Then take it because it's yours. Not because of what it means, but because it shouldn't be in the hands of someone who doesn't honor it. Volna reached out, took the pendant. The stone felt heavier than she remembered. If I find out the ambush happened anyway, she said, if I find out you lied about calling it off, then hunt me down. I'll deserve it. Yes, you will. She turned and walked out of the cave. Didn't look back. Couldn't. If she looked back, she might do something stupid like forgive him. The journey to her clan's camp was the longest 2.5 days of her life. Every step hurt. Every breath reminded her of the wound that should have killed her, of the human who saved her for all the wrong reasons. She reached the outskirts of the camp at dawn, on what would have been the day of the ambush, if Davin had told the truth, if Senna had listened, if his message had even arrived. If, the warrior's least favourite word, Brack saw her first. He was on morning watch and he literally dropped his spear when she emerged from the tree line. Volna, his voice cracked. We thought, I'm alive. She was limping badly now, the last of her energy spent. Where's Krog? In his tent, but get him now. Word spread fast. The dead warrior had returned. Within minutes, what seemed like the entire clan had gathered. Krog pushed through the crowd, his massive frame unmistakable even among orcs. Volna. He didn't embrace her. That wasn't the orc way. But his hand gripped her shoulder, and his eyes held relief that words couldn't capture. We held your ceremony 3 days ago. I know, I'm sorry. How did you? There's no time. Is anyone here sick, missing? Did anything unusual happen today? Krog's expression shifted. No. Why? Because there was supposed to be an ambush. Human scouts had intel on our positions, our patrol rotations, our strength. They were planning to hit us this morning. The crowd erupted, angry voices, questions. Brack stepped forward, his face dark. How do you know this? Volna pulled out the Wolfstone pendant, held it up for everyone to see. Because I told them. Because I was saved by a human scout who made me think he was kind, who asked questions, who I answered because I'm an idiot, who thought trust was something you could give to someone who saved your life. Silence. Krog's jaw tightened. You gave tactical intelligence to the enemy. I did. And then I found out what he planned to do with it, and I came here to warn you. Warn us about an ambush that didn't happen, another warrior said. Convenient. The human said he'd call it off, said he'd send word to his people. I don't know if he did. I don't know if they listened, but you're alive, so maybe... Her legs gave out. Brack caught her before she hit the ground. She needs medical attention. Whatever happened, she's wounded bad. She needs to explain, someone else said. She gave away military secrets to humans. She tried to fix it, Brack shot back. Look at her. She traveled for days with that wound. Whatever happened, she's trying to make it right. Krog raised a hand. Instant silence. That was Chieftain's authority. Take her to the healers. We'll discuss this after she's stable. They carried her to the medical tent. The clan's healers took one look at her wound and immediately started asking questions. How long ago? Who stitched this? What medicines? Volna answered mechanically. Her mind was elsewhere. The camp was fine. Everyone was alive. No ambush had happened. Davin had actually done it. Called it off. Stopped it. It didn't change what he'd done. Didn't erase the betrayal. But it meant something. Maybe not forgiveness, but acknowledgement that he'd tried to fix what he'd broken. She slept for 18 hours straight. Woke to find Krog sitting beside her cot. You should rest more, he said. I should explain. You should. But not now. Now you heal. Krog, I know what you did, Volna. You made a mistake. Trusted someone you shouldn't have. Gave information that could have destroyed us. He paused. You also came back. Warned us. Made it possible for us to be ready if the ambush did come. It didn't. No, it didn't. He studied her face. Do you believe the human called it off? I don't know what I believe anymore. But you want to believe he did. She was quiet. Then, yes. I want to believe that somewhere in all the lies there was one piece of truth, that he had enough honor left to stop what he'd started. Krog nodded slowly. The Wolfstone pendant. You gave it to him? I did. And he returned it? Yes. That means something. Among our people, returning such an item is an admission. An acknowledgement that the bearer failed the trust. He definitely did that. But he acknowledged it. That's rare. Most who betray never admit it. They justify, rationalize, make excuses. Krog stood, his shadow falling across her. What you did was foolish, Volna, but you're young. Warriors make mistakes. What matters is how you respond to them. I'll accept any punishment the clan decides. The punishment is that you live with what happened. That's burden enough. He left her alone with her thoughts. The days that followed were difficult. The clan knew what had happened, knew she'd given information to a human. Some understood, some didn't. Brack stood by her, which helped. But there were whispers. There always would be. 2 weeks after her return, a message arrived, delivered by a border scout who'd found it attached to a tree in human territory. It was addressed to Volna. She read it alone, in her tent, while the Wolfstone pendant hung heavy around her neck. Volna, the ambush was called off. Senna wasn't happy about it, but I told her the intel was compromised. She believed me. Your people are safe. I won't insult you by apologizing. Words don't fix what I did. But I want you to know that meeting you changed something. You were right about everything you said. I've spent 5 years pretending distance made my actions acceptable, pretending that not seeing the consequences meant they didn't exist. I quit. Told Senna I was done with intelligence work. She said I was getting soft. She's probably right. I don't expect forgiveness, don't expect you to believe this letter. But I needed you to know. You were supposed to be a mark, a source, just another orc to extract information from. Instead, you taught me that honor isn't about species, it's about choices, and I made terrible ones. The Wolfstone pendant taught me what trust looks like, what it weighs, what it costs when you break it. Thank you for that lesson. I'm sorry it had to be learned the way it was. Davin P.S. I'm leaving the mountains, going south, toward the coast. If you ever need someone to, I don't know. If you ever need anything, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid, but I'll try. Volna read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into her pack, next to her father's old warhammer, next to the few possessions she considered valuable. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. The letter wasn't asking for absolution, just offering information. Acknowledgement, maybe that was enough, maybe it wasn't. But Davin had been right about one thing. Trust wasn't something you could repair once broken. It was something you carried, like a scar, as proof that you'd survived something that should have destroyed you. Volna touched the Wolfstone pendant. Grey stone, with white markings, her father's oath, her oath. She'd given it away once to someone who didn't deserve it, but she'd survived, learned, grown. And maybe, somewhere in the mountains, a human mercenary was doing the same. The war between humans and orcs continued. It always did. Borders shifted, battles were fought, people died on both sides. But in the Iron Peak clan there was a warrior named Volna who wore a Wolfstone pendant and told her story to young orcs who asked about trust and honor. Trust is earned, she would say, not freely given. But sometimes you give it anyway. Sometimes you're desperate or scared or dying in the snow, and someone offers you a hand. What do you do then? They would ask. You take the hand, you survive, and then you deal with whatever comes after. But what if they betray you? Then you learn, you adapt, you become stronger. She would touch the pendant. But you never stop believing that trust is possible, because the alternative, assuming everyone will betray you, that's not survival. That's just slow death. And if the young warriors asked if she ever saw the human again, if she ever found out what happened to him, Volna would smile. No, she would say, but I hope he found whatever he was looking for when he went south. I hope he learned to be better than he was. You forgave him? I survived him. That's different. They would nod, understanding and not understanding, the way young warriors always did. And Volna would send them off to their training, remembering snow and cold and a voice saying, "Stay with me." She had stayed, through betrayal, through pain, through the long journey home. She'd stayed alive. Sometimes that was the only victory that mattered. If you've ever trusted someone who didn't deserve it, you know the weight of that betrayal, but you also know something else, that you survived it, that you learned from it, that you became stronger, even though strength came with scars. Volna's story isn't about forgiveness, it's about surviving the unforgivable. About choosing honor, even when honor has been thrown back in your face. About wearing your scars not as shame, but as proof that you were strong enough to carry them. The Wolfstone pendant hangs heavy, but it hangs, and that makes all the difference. Trust carefully. But never stop trusting completely, because a life without trust isn't a life at all. It's just existence. And warriors deserve better than that. Here at Orcbound Tales, we believe every story carries a lesson worth remembering. Every scar tells you that you survived something that tried to break you. If this story resonated with you, if Volna's journey reminded you of your own battles with trust and betrayal, leave a comment below. Share your story. Tell us about a time you had to choose between bitterness and honor. And if you want more tales like this, stories that challenge what it means to be honorable, to be strong, to be worthy of trust, subscribe to Orcbound Tales. Hit that like button so this story can reach others who need to hear it. Because these stories aren't just entertainment. They're reminders that warriors come in all forms, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust again after being broken. Your support keeps these tales alive, and every warrior's story deserves to be told. Welcome to the clan.